which way the wind was blowing 190 million years ago. The winds would have been predominantly coming from what is today the north. It would not have been the north then, it would have been sort of the southwest. So what was happening, remember you just felt the sand, and it was very fine, right? The fineness of the sand grains here in the Navajo sandstone tells scientists that this sand traveled really far. It got broken down into very small particles. It's very polished and smooth and uniform. It's almost 90, it's like 99 point something percent quartz. So it almost all came from the same type of rock as well. Scientists believe that about half of the sand that makes up the Navajo sandstone came from the ancestral Appalachian Mountains. So I've got a couple people from North Carolina. I, being from Southern California, went back to Maine for college, and Appalachians go all the way up into Maine. The tallest peak in Maine is a mile high. It's Mount Katahdin. There's a 10-foot cairn on the top of Mount Katahdin to make it a mile high. So the first time one of my friends in college asked me if I wanted to go hiking, they told me there was this great mountain. I laughed at them because I grew up just outside the San Bernardino Mountains, which get over 10,000 feet. And so I was like, it's not a real mountain. So if you've ever had anybody tease you about your mountains back east, you tell them that your mountains are very old and they were due for a vacation. The other half of them are in Zion. And they're actually in the process of moving to a new location. Right now, as the sand erodes away, ends up in the river, it's traveling down to the bottom of Lake Mead, where it will eventually be formed into a new type of rock. So in a few million years, you'll need to go to Arizona to visit your mountains. So don't let anybody make fun of the ancestral Appalachians. The ancestral Appalachian Mountains would have been the size of the Alps or the Himalayas. They're one of the oldest mountain ranges on the planet. So they're beautiful, not big. Yeah. The rocks of the Navajo sandstone actually have nothing to do with the layering or the formation of the rock. What geologists think happened was that when this rock layer was below the ground, before it got pushed up and exposed, the water actually leached some of the iron that makes the rocks red out of parts of the rock. And so mostly those parts are up near the top. Well, don't look behind you, never mind, because the sun will be right in your eyes. But we can see a white peak sort of just through the trees here, and we'll see more white rock as we head further up the canyon. Those white places are just lacking as much iron, less iron than the redder portions. Make sense?
So it's the same kind of stone,
it's the same
just
stone
without iron.
Mm-hmm. And it would have all been the same color at one time. It would have all been this kind of reddish pink. The iron was removed, or kind of, the rocks were kind of bleached. Think of it as being bleached. Okay. Stop, so enjoy it. But if you look over this direction, it goes real straight and then curves down to that saddle, that very red section of rock. That is Angel's Landing. And in fact, you can see some people up there moving around, especially the people in white shirts stand out really well. So they are coming up where we see this ponderosa pine sticking up over here, kind of all by itself. That is Scout's Lookout, roughly. So that's where it's a nice big flat spot, and then that's where they start along the saddle, which is where all the chains are, out to the peak. Straight behind us is a formation called the Organ, and there's a big saddle between the Organ and Angel's Landing. If you stop at Big Bend, that saddle between the two will perfectly frame the Great White Throne, which is this large flat-peaked white, or flat-faced white peak over here. So lots of famous paintings of the Great White Throne, sort of from that Big Bend shuttle stop viewpoint between the two very red rocks. This other white-faced rock with all the red staining on it, up high you can see there's a man-made structure up there. That is Cable Mountain. And that structure up on top is the remnants of the cable works, which early Mormon pioneers used to transport lumber down into the canyon. If you're ever here in the spring or fall, this area between Weeping Rock and Big Bend and the temple is a great place to look for rock climbers, but we probably won't see any. peek at the Virgin River right now. It doesn't look very threatening, right? This is what the Virgin River looks like on most days. It's a very quiet, very peaceful, very inviting river. And we can barely see it right now because it's so low. It's only flowing at about 35 cubic feet per second. Now, do I have any like mathematicians today who can picture a perfect little foot cube of water floating down the river? No one? I can't picture perfect little foot cubes. I'm not very mathematical at all. So I have another analogy for you to use. If the river was flowing at 1,000 cubic feet per second, it would be the same as 6 African elephants running past us at this one spot every second. That's 30 tons of water every second. 6 elephants every second. That's a lot of elephants, right? 1,000 cubic feet per second would be a smaller flash flood in the canyon here in the summer. Flash floods, which are when the Virgin River is doing most of its carving, most of its work, have reached up to 5,000 cubic feet per second in the summer, which would be 30 elephants every second. It's a lot of elephants, right? So when we talk about the river like this, you start to get an idea of how such a small, quiet little river could have formed Zion Canyon. This is a quiet little side canyon. It's upside down. This is a quiet little side canyon, not the main river, so flash floods don't have to happen in the Virgin River. They can happen in smaller side canyons. See that over there? And it looks inviting, right? Just like the Narrows. These small canyons like this with these peaceful little creeks, some of them actually are even dry at times of the year. They invite people into them. They call to you. But in a matter of minutes, even on a sunny day, this canyon could become this. So the river doesn't have to be storming right over our heads. It doesn't have to look black and cloudy. It can be a beautiful sunny day like this, and if it's raining in the right places so that it's draining into canyons here in the park, we can have flash floods. This picture is what we call the head of a flood, and it's pushing all of these debris ahead of it, mostly logs and sticks. If you got hit with this wall of debris, it would be like being hit with a brick wall. You're not going to outrun a flash flood. I've heard people say that. Well, you know, they've told me, well, flash floods move an average of about 5 miles an hour. I can run faster than that. It will eventually catch you. You can't outrun a flash flood. This exact same picture that you see here is on the back of some of our shuttle buses, and it says, try swimming in this. Because I've also heard people say, it's okay, I know how to swim. You can't swim in a flash flood. Eventually, after the head of the flash flood passes, this is what that canyon became. This is a little bit further back, so in a wider section of the canyon, but you can see that the creek is now this frothing, angry-looking mass. It's mud brown because it is full of sediments. It would be like trying to swim in sandpaper. In fact, some people who have survived flash floods by clinging onto rocks or trees have had very severe damage to their skin, and they've had to get skin grafts because it's like I said, swimming in sandpaper.